Hi, I'm Guy, and there's no Nat tonight. She got sick. I was sick. I'm feeling better now. So her voice is completely out. She can speak very softly. She's actually off camera switching for me today. But we all hope she gets better. And I got quite a few stories tonight. So we are going to have the YouTube segment and the Rumble segment. The Rumble segment has quite a big story. There was a lot of research going into the real size of the Chinese population. It could be under 400 million. And I want to get into the statistics on the numbers they could have been hiding and things like this. But first, we're going to get into the Dave Smith, Douglas Murray debate he had on Joe Rogan, and it was phenomenal. Okay, let's go to my primary camera. Okay, well, I just got done watching Joe Rogan. I rarely watch it anymore because it's so long and drawn out, but I started watching the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate, what turned into a debate almost instantly. Douglas Murray was very confrontational, and right off the bat, it was fireworks. If you like watching debates, you'll absolutely love that debate. I was a little disappointed on how far Douglas Murray seems to have fallen. I don't know if certain governments have gotten to him or what's going on, but Dave Smith absolutely destroyed him. Douglas Murray took very firm positions, and he wasn't able to see the other side, so his arguments were very, I would say, lax. I'll talk about it more on Rumble maybe, because the subject matters they got into were very political and involved foreign governments that YouTube necessarily doesn't like me talking about. Okay, let's get into the next story here, and that's going to be the Harley Davidson story. Maybe let's bring it up on the main screen here. Perfect. Okay, so if you don't know, we did a video on Harley Davidson going woke. It's in Spanish, so if you want to see that, I highly recommend it. We go over all the details of what I'm about to talk about. But Harley Davidson is coming around like a lot of other companies in the US. They got rid of their DEI, but they had hired an extremely woke CEO. He's actually one of the wokest. He used to run Puma. Harley Davidson hired him in. He was planning to make Harley Davidson completely electrical, no more gas-powered motors and things like this. His policies and his economic forecast for what he wanted to do with the future of Harley was basically chop off the balls of Harley and make it some electrical bike company, which Harley's actually doing now under his leadership. They're actually making electrical bikes rather than loud pieces of Americana. Now, I used to have a Harley. I was a huge fan of Harley before they went woke. Now that they've gotten rid of a lot of the DEI policies, first they got rid of them, then they tried to hide them, then they actually got rid of them, and now they finally got rid of the woke CEO. They only have one thing left to do, and that's change their primary strategy. They're going to have to bring their manufacturing back to the United States, and they're going to have to invest in real engines, not these electrical engines. Nobody wants to buy a Harley Davidson with an electrical engine. Also, Donald Trump in the States is making it a lot easier now. Getting rid of the mandates for electric vehicles. So you are going to be able to manufacture gas-powered vehicles in the United States and really get back to their roots. So there was a huge ban on Harley Davidson amongst the biker community. I don't know if you know what happened in Sturgis, but Sturgis is one of the biggest motorcycle rallies in the United States. And the Harley Davidson always has a booth there. And so does Bud Light. Both of them were completely boycotted. Nobody went to those booths. It made a lot of media headlines because people were taking pictures of these empty booths. And usually these things are absolutely packed. So Harley seems to be making all the right moves. They just need to change their strategy and go back into building gas-powered bikes now. And I think people will slowly transition back to them. They also need to invest in traditional Americana branding in order to really solidify and show the public they're going back to their roots. Okay, what do we have next? Oh, I think Nat talked about this last night, and I got a few more new talking points, so it's going to be a little bit different here. But it's China wants to reduce imports of Hollywood films. They're talking about a full-on ban of Hollywood films. The interesting point about this is not many people understand. China currently only allows 34 foreign films into the country a year for wide theatrical release in all cinemas in China. So at 34 films, these are primarily Disney films, primarily major studio films that make major concessions to China, that change the films, that do Chinese bidding, and that really have taken funding for China on the back end to make Chinese propaganda movies for primarily American audiences. So Donald Trump also released a statement about this, and they asked him, well, China's thinking about retaliating against your tariffs by banning Hollywood films. And he says, well, I've heard worse things before. And that's the truth. I've heard worse things before. And China banning Hollywood films, the fact that they only allow 34 films into the country right now, I don't think is going to make a major difference. The one film it will make a big difference on is Avatar, and that's why Avatar is in this article. The Chinese absolutely love Avatar, and this is what pushed Avatar's box office numbers so high. Most movies in China, and Nat did review this last night, make a minuscule amount. Chinese audiences really don't like American films like Americans like American films. They don't like the woke propaganda. They don't like the subversive storylines of LGBTQ and political propaganda being pushed in these things, even when they remove most of it. But they love Avatar, so Avatar is going to take a big hit in the box office when the next two features come out. I think he's already finished filming Avatar, was it 4 and 5 or 3 and 4? And they're ready for release. So this is going to really hurt the box office for James Cameron and Disney, but we'll see what happens going forward there. Okay, let's go into the next segment here, and that's going to be Hong Kong pledges to seize every opportunity to assist influencers in streaming like iShowSpeed. iShowSpeed's a YouTuber. I don't really watch him. I have seen him here or there, basically his little clips. I didn't really know who he was, but when this story popped up, I kind of went to his channel, brushed up on him. He had 8 million views for every stream he did in China. So the Chinese government, I originally thought they were kind of maybe pushing his streams, but after watching some of this content, I got to really ask myself, did they know what he was filming? So he was sitting in the car, and a Chinese gentleman came up to the window, knocked on the window, and they handed him a box of KFC chicken with something wrapped inside. He took it, and the Chinese gentleman said, open it, you like it. And the bucket of KFC chicken had this thing wrapped inside. He unwraps it, and it's a banana. And the Chinese gentleman starts acting like a monkey to him, which is extremely racist. And it does not make the Chinese people look good, or the Chinese government, if they're actually pushing this kind of propaganda. Furthermore, there was another incident when he did these series of live streams in China, supposedly to showcase Beijing and the major Chinese cities over there, but they gave him a bouquet of flowers, which is actually a bouquet of cotton. That's also extremely racist, but they're trying to defend it by saying this is a traditional bouquet of a bouquet that Chinese people give out. So, okay, I can maybe get past that one. But the last major incident that happened on these streams were a fan of iShowSpeed's girlfriend came up, and she said, I'm a racist, I don't like you. And he said, what did you say? And she said, I'm a racist, I don't like you, but I love your girlfriend, she's white. And this was just crazy. It almost didn't seem like she knew what she was saying, but he reconfirmed it, and she could speak English fairly well when she was saying other things. So it makes me think the Chinese government maybe didn't review all the tapes before they let him release it, because it did not make the Chinese people look so well. But going forward, I think China definitely wants to help American influencers to improve their image to the American audience, especially with the American government really declaring an economic war on China this week through Donald Trump. And this could escalate into something much more. So we'll see what happens. Okay, let me take a drink of water here. I'm used to not having to do all this by myself, and I feel like I'm rambling, but she's giving me a thumbs up off camera. So what's the next thing we got here? Oh, is this the PlayStation? Yeah. So PlayStation dumps Sweet Baby Inc. and DEI purge. And this is big, and a lot of companies are doing this right now. We talked about Harley Davidson earlier, and now we're talking about PlayStation. I believe Nintendo's also purging. I seen a list of 4 other companies that announced today they're getting rid of all their DEI activities. Now, this doesn't mean they're necessarily getting rid of it. A lot of them are actually hiding it under something called Bridge. So the DEI will be still in a lot of these companies, but a lot of these companies are getting rid of them, especially the Japanese companies. The Japanese companies did not like DEI to begin with. It did not go with the Japanese culture. The reason they adopted it is because their American branches were recommending they adopted DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion divisions in their company, and also adopted ESG, which is environmental social governance, in order to distribute their games more thoroughly within the American and European markets. But now that Donald Trump has kind of given these companies cover, the ones that don't really want their DEI, don't want to follow DEI and ESG policies, are really a lot of these Japanese companies. So they're happy to get rid of them and go back to traditional game making and really put the economics of video games first, making something for the mainstream that everybody will want to buy. The video game industry has been hurting for a few years now, and a lot of it has to do with this DEI and ESG and all the politics that have been put into video games. So it's good to see that PlayStation has moved away from this. The biggest DEI or people that were trying to push diversity into video games was the company named Sweet Baby Inc. But there was also a secondary company called Black Girls in Gaming. And both these were the 2 major companies that were really pressing DEI. And these are the ones that are really getting called out now. I'm expecting them to go completely bankrupt and insolvent soon. So hopefully that does happen. Okay, let me go into the Nintendo Switch. This is another video game story. I actually watched quite a bit about this the other day. And so if you don't know, Nintendo Switch 2 came out recently. People are pretty infuriated about the pricing. It's $450 for the console alone, and it's going to be $80 for the games. Now, for me, I don't know. People are primarily concerned about the pricing of the games going forward if they're going to be $80. Now, when I was younger, I remember a time when the original PlayStation came out, and I think when it was primarily the original PlayStation and Nintendo as well, Super Nintendo, games were costing up to $89. So a lot of the Killer Instinct games, the Mortal Kombat games, I didn't have a lot of games back then because I didn't have a lot of money, but I do remember how much they did cost. I am a lot older now. I'm in my 40s. So the newer generation doesn't remember a time when games cost $80. But Ubisoft projected to price some of their games this year at $130 to $140. Now, I might not mind the pricing of $80 games because I remember a time when they did cost that much. But what I don't like what Nintendo's doing, they're making it very confusing to their audience. They're saying you can play Nintendo Switch 1 games on Nintendo Switch 2, but only if you pay for an upgrade or you get a code. They're showing the boxes for pre-order of the Nintendo Switch 2 games, and it has a disclaimer on there saying it's going to come with an activation code and not a hard copy of the game, or you're going to have to use the activation code for the hard copy of the game. So it seems like Nintendo's going in the direction of they want to get rid of hard copies of games, which I do not like, because on a lot of these gaming networks like the PlayStation Network and things like that, they're getting rid of old games that people have actually paid for, and they're not refunding their money. So it gives the customer no control over previous purchases they have made. So Nintendo seems to be going in the wrong direction with this. We'll have to see when the console does come out, but I'm not very hopeful on the future of all games will be downloaded one day. Now it looks like they're having a service charge of an extra $10 for if you want to buy the hard copy, which is fine, but it shouldn't just be a code that you put in. It needs to be an actual game that you physically own. So if the servers go down, you'll still be able to play. A lot of people want to buy the hard copies of movies and games. It's kind of ridiculous what they're doing with movies, and it's somewhat related. They've gone to this digital model where they don't want people owning the hard copies of movies, so you're only able to watch them on streaming networks, but they're editing movies from the 80s, the 60s, the 50s, and they're taking out scenes and things that are they think are racist or not appropriate for modern times. But it's really a look back into history on what things were acceptable and what things weren't. If you can't critically think and say, well, maybe that's not acceptable today, but these movie companies want to take the critical thinking away from the audience and actually start changing these older movies. I want to see the full, authentic, original movie when I watch a movie, if I do watch an older movie. Okay, let's go on from here. Let's see what I got. Okay, Natalia can whisper a little bit, so she's gonna talk to me and she's gonna tell me what the comments are, and I'm gonna respond a little bit.
Walker says, hello, guy. I hope she gets better soon.
Okay, Walker. Well, I hope she gets better soon as well. So Walker said, I hope she gets better soon. So I was really surprised her voice actually went out, because her voice was a little raspy yesterday, and she usually, when she gets sick, doesn't get sick for more than a day. This is now the second day, so hopefully she'll have a voice by tomorrow. We'll have to see.
Yes, it says China only uses Hollywood as a subversion machine for the USA.
And I completely agree with that, Walker. She just said, you said, read the comment again.
China only uses Hollywood as a subversion machine.
China only uses Hollywood as a subversion machine, and that's completely true, especially when we went over the statistics yesterday with what Natalia said about how much the Chinese audience is actually watching these American films. They're not watching them. The Chinese government's only allowing 34 films into the country, and they're making the studios alter those films. The reason that they're allowing those films into the country is they want to have a relationship with the major studios so they can give them propaganda money to propagandize Western audiences. This is why you have this crazy LGBTQ and this diversification that is overrepresented in movies. The LGBT community is a very small percentage of actual society, and I don't mind if they're in movies, but they should not be represented to the proportion they actually are. Okay, is there any more comments, or that's it? Okay, well, Walker, thanks for sticking with me. And I know there's not too many people watching because it's an all English show tonight, but thank you for watching. And if you could like and subscribe, because YouTube has been throttling the channel a lot lately. Before we got sick, we seem to only be losing subscribers. Very rarely are we gaining subscribers anymore. So thank you to everybody that can like and subscribe. Okay, the next one is Minecraft. So this was, we have the article. Can you go down in the article and see if there's any actual clips of this? Because I really hope there is. Perfect. Okay. So there's Minecraft chaos is going on in the United States, and primarily the United States right now, but also some other Western countries. These are TikTok trends that are currently happening. It's really helping for the promotion of the movie, but it's making theater owners and theater workers really hate this movie. They're having to give warning signs, and tell the audience before they go in not to do this. The audiences are still doing this kind of stuff. So you ask, what are the audiences actually doing? What they're doing is they're buying extremely large buckets of popcorn, and they're starting to throw them. They just throw the whole bucket. The whole audiences throw the bucket all over the theater. They're bringing barn animals into the theater. They're literally bringing chickens into the theater, which is crazy. And then they're also taking off their shirts and just whipping them around and taking off their clothes and just making these viral TikTok moments of the whole audience just going absolutely crazy. And I used to work at a theater, and they did show the floors of the theater afterwards, and it is literally a pile of popcorn an inch thick all over the theater. And I used to have to actually clean theaters. It was one of my first jobs out of high school, and man, I would have hated to clean something like this up. So it's good for the movie, but I maybe wish people are a little bit more respectful to the theater owners and the people that actually work there. Also, people that are bringing their kids and things like this do not want to be dealing with these kind of wild teens that are just going crazy. It's actually going to destroy the movie for the kids that want to go watch this. But hopefully they're doing it at later shows where maybe kids aren't. But good for the movie, bad for the theaters, bad for audiences that actually want to watch the movie in cinemas. And I got a couple more stories. We got a girl boss story here. And this is my energy drink, so I can't drink a lot of energy drinks, so I drink it from a small cup. This is actually Natalia's cup. That's why it has an N. So the next story is about Jeff Bezos and his Blue Origin company. He's going to send 2, 4, 6 women into space, one being his wife, the other being prominent CEOs and feminist figures within the girl boss community. And a lot of people have joked around saying, well, maybe he's actually done with his wife and he wants to get a new one, and all these feminists are going to blow up in space. Now, let's hope that doesn't happen, although it might not be the worst thing. It wouldn't be the best thing, I guess. But I'm sure when these people get back, when all these feminists get back, they're going to be interviewed and they're going to say, oh, this was a bonding experience between this group of powerful women, blah, blah, blah. These women didn't do anything to get into space. They didn't build the company. They didn't do the research. They did nothing. They did nothing but be women, and this is a publicity stunt from Blue Origin. And between the two companies of Musk and Blue Origin, I have no respect for Blue Origin. The way Blue Origin was able to be founded and get the majority of their technology is, Jeff Bezos was able to poach all the original staff from SpaceX and pay them 4 times the salary, and basically stole a lot of proprietary technology from SpaceX through poaching their staff. So it was really the Chinese model Jeff Bezos implemented in order to build Blue Origin. He was also able to leverage a lot of his progressive liberal politics at the time to get major government contracts so it could float Blue Origin. Elon Musk really took the much harder route here. And you have to, whether you love Musk or you hate Musk, he really did it through his blood, sweat, and tears, and really built this company from the ground up with the right people. So now that the government has kind of changed in the States, I think Blue Origin is going to have a lot of trouble maintaining government contracts. And I would expect that I don't think he's going to want to lose billions of dollars, and Blue Origin may go under in the next 5 to 10 years. We'll have to see what happens, but SpaceX is now taking the primary role as far as merging with NASA and doing a lot of co-missions with NASA and other space organizations worldwide. Okay, and I think I have two more stories here before we go over to the Green Monster. And this one is Dune 3. Now, I was surprised because Dune 1 and 2, well, I didn't necessarily like the two main leads, the female lead and the male lead, but they did okay in the role and they fit it somewhat decently. Now they're talking about getting Robert Pattinson to kind of come in for Dune 3. I don't really like him as an actor so much. He did Batman, and that's the most recent thing he did, but he doesn't really draw in audiences, and I'm sure he's going to ask for a huge salary. I would have loved to see somebody else, but Robert Pattinson is rumored to come into Dune 3. We'll see what happens. So far, I've actually liked the Dune series. I've forced Nat to go to Dune 1 and Dune 2, which she's hated, but she's come along, and I've absolutely loved both of them. So hopefully Dune 3 is good. I would love to see somebody other than Robert Pattinson, though. Okay, and the final story here before we go into politics is somewhat of a political, what is this, Minecraft Movie Awakens? No, this was not the last story. I kind of already talked about Minecraft. Stephen A. Smith. This was somewhat of a political story, but I thought I can talk about it without upsetting the YouTube censors here. And that's Stephen A. Smith is leaving the doors open for a presidential run in 2028. And right now you have two primary candidates for the Democratic Party. It was Gavin Newsom on his own, and now you have Stephen A. Smith. One of these two people, I believe, will take the presidential nomination. Gavin Newsom has a horrible track record, but he's a well-polished politician. So if they want to go that route and they can build him up into being a moderate, or at least being viewed as a moderate to the general public, I think they'll go with Gavin Newsom. If they want to bring an outsider in and they have no other choice, I think they would go with a Stephen A. Smith. He's well-spoken. He's kind of out from left field. He speaks his mind. He speaks very plainly so that the general average Joe will be able to relate to him. He's kind of like a Donald Trump figure. The only problem is he comes from the sports world, not the business or economic world. So it's hard to make the pitch that he's qualified to be president without an economic or military background. But, you know, this is maybe the best move the Democratic Party has. It's going to be either Newsom or Stephen A. Smith at this point. There's nobody else I see that even has a chance. We could talk AOC, but she's far too radical. And if the Democratic Party wants to survive, they need to go back to the middle. And that's what Stephen A. Smith is. And that's also what Gavin Newsom is currently doing to his image. He's going from the radical governor of California to trying to be viewed as a moderate and having a podcast where he's talking to a lot of Republicans and kind of showing his conservative side. Okay, I think that's it for the Green Monster. So let's go back to the 2-camera real quick. Thanks for everybody that's stuck with me so far. If you come over to the Green Monster, I got a lot of political stories. I've been sick the last few days, but I've been laying in bed, kind of taking notes on what's been going on politically. So I do got a lot of stories there as well. And, I got a couple more comments, so we're going to read the comments.
Well, Jeff did what China does by paying Royal Air Force pilots from the UK.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. I mean, I don't know if it's the worst thing. It worked for China, so Jeff Bezos thought it would work for him. And I mean, as much as I buy things from Amazon and things like that, it really undercuts a lot of small businesses and things like that. I'm going to talk about some free trade agreements and what that did to countries around the world later. But Jeff Bezos is just really undercut all the small businesses in the United States and put a lot of people out of business with his model. Now, he's a shrewd businessman, but I don't think it was good for the economic blue-collar worker in the United States. And that's it for now. We're going to go over to the Green Monster. That's RUMBLE. Just look for Nat and the guy when you get over there. It should pop right up. Okay. Let me know when we're over there.